I never thought I would be writing relationship drama on the internet, but here we are. My name is Tom, I am 32, and I work as a graphic designer downtown. Until last weekend, I thought I was in love. 6 months ago, my girlfriend Jessica moved into my house. Not our house, my house. The 3-bedroom craftsman I bought after 3 years of working 60-hour weeks to afford the down payment. Every mortgage payment, every utility bill, all in my name. But when Jessica started leaving her things around, the space felt more alive, like it was becoming the home I had always imagined. Jessica is 29, works in digital marketing, and has this tight group of friends she calls her inner circle. I call them the echo chamber. There is Tiffany, who speaks exclusively in Instagram captions, Brittany, who does something with social media influencing, and Chardonnay, whose name I thought was a joke until I met her mother, Merlot. They descend on my house every Friday night, like perfectly manicured locusts, turning my kitchen into ground zero for the most ridiculous conversations. I have always been the steady type, methodical, organized, maybe boring by today's standards. I wake up at 6:30, make coffee in the same mug, actually read the newspaper. I like routines, knowing where my things are, quiet satisfaction in work well done. Jessica is my complete opposite, spontaneous to the point of chaos, loud enough to wake neighbors, craves attention like oxygen. She changes her mind about major decisions like most people change socks, thrives on drama, treats every inconvenience like a personal attack from the universe. For 8 months, I convinced myself we balanced each other out. She brought excitement to my structured life. I brought stability to her whirlwind. We were puzzle pieces that didn't quite fit, but close enough if you really wanted it to work. Last Friday night changed everything. The echo chamber had arrived as usual, and I was finishing a logo design for a client in my office. Around 9, I heard Jessica's voice rising above the chatter, animated and excited in that way that usually meant trouble. She was pacing around the kitchen, gesturing wildly while on the phone. Something about a lake house, a weekend getaway, needing to reset and live authentically. When I walked into the kitchen for water, Jessica was in the middle of the room, the echo chamber arranged around my island like a tribunal. "We absolutely have to leave early Saturday," she was saying. "Beat the traffic, get the prime spots by the water." I waited for her to finish the call, then asked casually, "Which lake are you guys thinking about?" The transformation was instantaneous. Her face twisted from excitement to pure annoyance, like I had interrupted something sacred. She turned to her friends, addressing them as if I had ceased to exist, and rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh my God," she announced. "Stop acting like we are married. You don't get a say in where I go or who I am with. This is exactly what I was talking about last week." The echo chamber erupted. Tiffany started clapping. Brittany nodded vigorously, filming for her stories. Chardonnay raised her wine glass in a toast to female independence. "Yes, Queen. Boundaries are so important. You don't owe anyone an explanation for living your truth. Men who try to control where you go are showing massive red flags." I stood there in my own kitchen, watching my girlfriend publicly humiliate me in front of her friends. In the house where I pay every bill, make every repair, handle every responsibility. The house where she had been living rent-free for 6 months. She laughed then, throwing her head back like this, was the funniest thing she had ever heard. And something in me cracked, not loud, just final. Something fundamental shifted inside my chest. Not anger. Exactly. More like a switch being flipped off. Crystal clear thinking. Perfect emotional distance. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just smiled and spoke in the most neutral tone possible. "You are absolutely right. We are not married. You don't owe me explanations. I don't get a say. Got it." Then I walked back to my office and closed the door. I could hear them celebrating for another hour. Jessica came to bed after midnight, sliding under the covers like nothing had happened. She probably expected me to apologize for being presumptuous. I didn't say a word. I just lay there thinking about everything she had told me about our relationship. The weekend was definitely going to be interesting. Just not how she expected. Saturday morning arrived with Jessica ransacking the bedroom, tossing clothes into designer luggage with reckless energy. "I will probably be back late Sunday night," she called, her voice carrying manufactured casualness. "Don't wait up." I was at the kitchen table with coffee and newspaper. Same routine I have had for years. "Sounds great. Have an amazing time." She appeared in the doorway 15 minutes later, dragging luggage like a glamorous refugee. Her goodbye kiss landed on my cheek with the precision of someone already mentally gone. "Love you," she said, but it sounded reflexive. "Drive safe," I replied. Not looking up. The little red convertible pulled out at 9:47, music blasting. I watched until she disappeared around the corner, then stood up and walked next door. Mrs. Gable has been my neighbor for 3 years, living in her house for 43 total. She is 80, sharp as steel, and maintains an intelligence network that would make the CIA envious. She also has strong opinions about young women who don't appreciate good men. "Tom, honey," she said, already in gardening clothes, "you look like a man with a very specific purpose. Mrs. Gable, I need a favor. It might involve improvisational theater." Her eyes lit up with Christmas morning enthusiasm. "Oh, this is about that shameless little hussy, isn't it?" I explained everything. Mrs. Gable listened with focused intensity, occasionally nodding or making disapproving sounds. "Leave everything to me," she said, clapping once. "I have been waiting 43 years for this performance." Operation Bachelor Pad Resurrection commenced at 10 of the clock. I called the county to make sure everything was legal. It was. I started in the bedroom, approaching Jessica's belongings with systematic methodology. 6 months of glitter and chaos fit into 9 cardboard boxes. Funny how little space a storm takes once it is over. I was methodical. Every item catalogued, organized, nothing damaged. Photographic evidence of my careful process. 6 hours to pack up every trace of Jessica's existence. 6 months of gradual territorial expansion, reduced to cardboard boxes. At 4 of the clock, the moving truck arrived. Professional movers. Efficient and uninterested in personal drama. Within 90 minutes, every box was heading to store all storage. Unit 42, climate-controlled, paid for 1 month. Non-marital courtesy. Then came the fun part. I spent money I had been saving for our European vacation. Artificial grass rug transformed the living room from sophisticated adult residence to comfortable bachelor cave. The leather recliner I had wanted for months finally had space and justification. Broken pinball machine from Craigslist looked perfect, where Jessica's meditation altar used to live. Beer fridge replaced her moral objection corner, but the piece de resistance came from the county animal shelter. Gus is a St. Bernard weighing approximately the same as a small motorcycle. 2 years old, gentle as summer breeze, surrendered by owners who didn't realize big dogs need space and humans who enjoy their company. The moment I saw him looking forlorn and hopeful, I knew he was exactly what my life was missing. Big, loyal, uncomplicated, completely uninterested in my relationship status. The shelter processed everything that afternoon, faster than I expected since they had an opening in their schedule. Their volunteer did a quick home check, took one look at my backyard, and declared it perfect for a dog who needs room to be himself. By evening, Gus was sprawled under my coffee table like he had always lived there. By Sunday evening, my house looked like it belonged to me again. Beige throw pillows donated to charity. My leather couch back from garage exile. Sports memorabilia returned to walls. Coffee table Jessica called aggressively gendered emerged from basement storage. I changed the Wi-Fi, get your own Wi-Fi. Password, not married law. Then I settled in my recliner with Gus sprawled at my feet, cracked the first beer from my new fridge, and waited. The house was my home again, my sanctuary, decorated for my preferences, organized for my comfort. Around 9 Sunday evening, familiar car engine in the driveway. The storm I had been anticipating was finally here, and I was completely ready. Jessica's key didn't work. The first attempt happened at 9:15, exactly. I know the precise time because I was sitting in my new recliner, beer in hand, watching Gus investigate his new surroundings, while keeping one ear tuned to the driveway. The metallic scratching sound of someone trying to force a key that no longer belongs was unmistakable through the front door. Silence, for about 30 seconds. Then more scratching, more aggressive this time, accompanied by what sounded like frustrated muttering. Gus lifted his massive head from where he had been contentedly chewing a tennis ball, and looked at me with the kind of patient curiosity that only dogs seem capable of maintaining in situations like this. "Stay, buddy," I whispered, scratching behind his ears. "This is going to be educational." My phone started ringing before she even stopped trying to force the lock. Jessica's name flashing on the screen with that particular insistence that suggested she was already past rational thought and moving straight into panic mode. I let it go to voicemail, taking another sip of my beer and watching Gus settle back down to his tennis ball. The phone rang again immediately. Then again. By the fourth consecutive call, I could hear her outside, yelling at her phone like the device itself was personally responsible for her current predicament. "What the hell, Tom? Answer your damn phone." That is when Mrs. Gable made her grand entrance, right on cue. "Oh my goodness. Dear, is everything quite all right out here?" I couldn't see the interaction from where I was sitting, but I had cracked the living room window specifically for audio purposes, and Mrs. Gable's voice carried perfectly through the evening air. She sounded like the most concerned, helpful neighbor in the world, which made her performance even more devastating. "My key will not work," Jessica said, and I could hear the barely controlled hysteria creeping into her voice. "And Tom isn't answering his phone, which is completely ridiculous, because he knew I was coming back tonight." "Oh yes," Mrs. Gable replied, her tone dripping with helpful sympathy. "Tom mentioned you would be returning from your weekend trip. He told me all about the situation. Actually, since you are not married, he decided to redecorate. Got himself a dog too. Massive loyal creature, doesn't talk back," he said. The silence that followed was so complete, I could have heard a pin drop 3 houses away. "What do you mean?" "Redecorate." Jessica's voice had climbed approximately 2 octaves. "Well, dear, you know how men are when they get an idea in their heads. He spent all day Saturday moving things around, making the place look more like himself again. Very therapeutic, I imagine." I heard footsteps on gravel as Jessica apparently decided she needed to investigate this claim personally. The living room window faces the front yard, and she would have had a perfect view of my newly transformed space if she pressed her face against the glass. Gus, bless his enormous heart, chose that exact moment to demonstrate his territorial awareness. He hauled himself to his feet with the kind of casual authority that only massive dogs possess, and walked over to the window, pressing his nose against the glass, and leaving a perfect dog-sized smudge right where Jessica was presumably trying to peer inside. The scream was audible from 3 blocks away. What the hell happened to my living room? Where is all my stuff? What did he do with my meditation altar? "Oh, I believe he mentioned something about storage," Mrs. Gable replied, maintaining her perfectly innocent tone. "Very considerate of him. Really, most men would have simply left everything on the front lawn for the neighbors to gossip about." Through the window, I could see Jessica backing away from the house like it had just revealed itself to be haunted. She was circling back toward the front door when I finally opened it. "Tom, this is insane," she said, her voice climbing toward panic. "Open the door. Let me in." I looked at her calmly. "Hands in my pockets," you said. "I don't get a say in your life." "That was about the lake trip," she snapped back. "And this is about my home." She stared at me for a long moment, probably waiting for me to crack, to apologize, to let her back into the familiar pattern of me backing down. "You don't get to stay in a life you said I am not part of." Then I closed the door and sent my text message. "You said I am not your husband, so you don't get a say in my decisions. I have respected that completely. Your belongings are safe at Store All Storage, 123 Storage Way, Unit 42. You have 1 month of prepaid storage. The access code is your birthday backwards. Take care." I hit send, then immediately blocked her number. The reaction was instantaneous and spectacular. The pounding on my front door started before I had even set my phone down. First, it was polite knocking, the kind you might use when visiting elderly relatives. Then it escalated to full palm slapping against the wood. Within 30 seconds, it sounded like she was trying to break down the door with her feet. "Tom, open this door right now. This is ridiculous. You cannot just throw me out of my own home." Gus looked genuinely concerned for the first time since I would brought him home. He stood up and walked toward the door, not aggressively, but with the kind of protective awareness that suggested he was ready to defend his new territory if necessary. "It is okay, boy," I said, keeping my voice calm and steady. "Just someone learning about natural consequences." The pounding continued for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only about 10 minutes. I could hear Jessica cycling through various emotional states at rapid speed. Anger, disbelief, bargaining, more anger. What sounded like the beginning stages of a complete breakdown. "This is insane. You cannot just decide we are broken up without even talking to me. I live here. My mail comes here. I have rights." Mrs. Gable's voice carried across the yard again, still maintaining that perfectly helpful tone. "Dear, I think you might want to keep your voice down. The Hendersons have a new baby, and you are going to wake the whole neighborhood." More screaming, more pounding, more threats of legal action and public humiliation. I finished my beer, opened another one, and waited for the storm to exhaust itself. Eventually, the pounding stopped. I heard car doors slamming, engines starting, tires squealing against asphalt as Jessica's red convertible tore out of my driveway, probably heading straight to Tiffany's house for an emergency echo chamber meeting. I went to bed in my own house, in my own bed, with my own dog snoring peacefully on the floor beside me like he had been living there his entire life. It was the best sleep I had had in months. Monday morning brought the first wave of social media warfare. I discovered this when my phone started buzzing with notifications from people I hadn't heard from in years. By Monday night, I was the poster boy for toxic masculinity. Tiffany rolled out a 12-slide Instagram story about financial control. Brittany did a TikTok about recognizing manipulation. Chardonnay wrote what looked like a manifesto about women's independence. I stayed offline. Let people who actually knew us connect the dots. I had work to focus on, a dog to train, and a life to rebuild. The people who immediately believe the first story without asking questions aren't the kind whose opinions matter in the long run. And I was absolutely certain that the real story was just getting started. It took exactly 1 week for Jessica's narrative to completely collapse. The turning point came when I broke my social media silence with a single strategic post. Nothing dramatic, just a before and after comparison that let facts speak for themselves. The before showed my living room as Jessica had decorated it. Beige everything. Throw pillows that made furniture uncomfortable. Candles that smelled like exploded perfume counter. Self-help books arranged like a shrine. The whole space looked designed by someone who thought personality was a character flaw. The after showed my space now. Comfortable, lived in, authentically mine. My leather couch back where it belongs. Sports memorabilia on walls. Books I actually want to read. Gus sprawled across artificial grass like the king of his domain. The caption was simple. Redecorated to match my relationship status. Not married. No say, no stay. I tagged 3 mutual friends who would appreciate the humor, then took Gus for his evening walk. By the time we returned, my phone had exploded. The post was shared 17 times. Comments were laughing emojis, fire symbols, messages from people I hadn't heard from in months, saying they had always thought Jessica was too much drama. But the real entertainment was watching Jessica's victim narrative crumble, as people asked uncomfortable questions. When you build your persona around being the perpetual victim of unreasonable men, it becomes difficult to maintain that image when the man has photographic evidence of you living rent-free in his house, while publicly humiliating him. Mutual friends who had initially offered sympathy started questioning. Why was she living in his house if they weren't serious? Why was she going on trips without basic communication? Why posting about independence while using his address for mail? People started sharing their own Jessica stories. Borrowed money never repaid. Dramatic exits from friend groups when she didn't get expected attention. Relationships that ended when she got bored and created chaos for entertainment. The legal threat arrived Thursday. Some lawyer Jessica found, demanding I return her property and cease harassment via social media. My lawyer responded with polite legal destruction. Mortgage documents proving sole ownership. Utility bills spanning 3 years. All my name. Photos showing careful packing without damage. Storage unit receipts. The lease agreement Jessica never signed because she would never officially moved in. I never heard from that lawyer again. 3 weeks later, I was at the dog park watching Gus make friends with a golden retriever when someone tapped my shoulder. Tom. Chardonnay stood behind me, looking genuinely uncomfortable for the first time since I had known her. Oversized sunglasses, baseball cap, like she was avoiding recognition. Hey, Chardonnay, I wanted to apologize. For that night in your kitchen, for believing Jessica's version without asking questions. Okay, the whole thing was messed up from the beginning. You asked a normal question about weekend plans, and she turned it into drama about independence. It wasn't fair. I nodded, watching Gus chase Charlie around the agility course with uncomplicated joy. She is living with her parents now, Chardonnay said quietly. Burned bridges with everyone in our friend group. Turns out when your whole personality is creating drama and playing victim, people get tired of being supporting characters in your ongoing crisis. I am sorry to hear that. Are you, though? You seem happier than I have ever seen you. More relaxed, more like yourself. I considered this, watching Gus bound across grass with his new friend. I am happier, not because Jessica's having a hard time. I am happier because I am not walking on eggshells anymore. Not trying to be someone I am not to avoid conflict. Not apologizing for asking basic questions or having reasonable expectations. She used to complain about you constantly, said you were boring and controlling. But honestly, watching from outside, it seemed like you were trying to be a good boyfriend while she treated you like an inconvenience. Thanks for saying that. After she left, I sat on the bench thinking about the past 2 months, the house that finally feels like home. The dog who greets me like I am the most important person in his world. Quiet mornings with coffee instead of social media drama. Weekends doing things I enjoy instead of generating Instagram content. Jessica taught me something valuable, though she hadn't meant to. Sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate or cruel. It is just believing people when they tell you who they are. She told me I wasn't her husband, that I didn't get a say in her life. So I stopped trying to be someone who did. I stopped acting like someone with the right to ask questions or expect basic communication. I became exactly what she said I was. Someone who doesn't get a say, and in return, she became someone who doesn't get to stay. Gus trotted over with his tennis ball, dropping it at my feet with simple loyalty Jessica used to mock as boring. I threw it across the field, watching him bound after it with pure enthusiasm. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother, asking about dinner this weekend. No drama, no hidden agendas, no emotional landmines, just a simple question deserving a simple answer. I looked around at other pet owners enjoying peaceful Saturday afternoons, and I realized this was exactly the kind of boring, predictable life that made Jessica feel trapped. Mrs. Gable waved from her porch this morning and said the street sounds quieter. So do I told her. Walking back to my house, I noticed Jessica's favorite coffee mug still sitting in the back of my cabinet. I looked at it for a moment, then smiled quietly and put it in the donation box. My phone buzzed with a notification. A text from an unknown number. You didn't have to embarrass me like that. I read it once, then deleted it without responding. Some conversations are already over, and I couldn't be happier about it. She said I didn't get a say in her life. Turns out, that is the best gift she ever gave me.